Alright guys, forgive my voice, I just woke up not too long ago, but I took a look at this interview, Jimmy Kimmel talking to the president, and I wanted to share with you. You know, surprisingly, he actually does a decent job. He pushes Joe Biden harder, honestly, than I've seen mainstream media push Joe Biden. Well, Joe hasn't really done any interviews recently, but of the stuff that I've seen previously from Biden talking to mainstream media, Kimmel does a better job. So let's listen, and then we'll break it down as we go here.
Well, you know,
it's a little loud. I love how the this is all this applause is definitely because the applause signs are lit up. I don't think it's because they're like, yes, Joe Biden, you've done so much as president to help everybody, bro.
You're wonderful. The wonderful First Lady is here tonight. Hello. How nice that the First Lady came along.
Oh, she did. She just made the commencement speech at Los Angeles Community College.
Yes.
Oh,
By the way, I'm
nice.
Joe Biden's husband. She's right there.
Oh, no.
Welcome. It's wonderful to have you here.
Did you hear? He said, I'm Joe Biden's husband. She's right there. Joe. You're Jill Biden's husband. Oh, my God. His brain, man. His brain is just not all there. But I do think that he did probably pop a couple addies for this this interview, and it does show as time goes on. But right there, that was a classic Joe Biden moment.
Good to be back, Jimmy. I
It's
thought
good
maybe you wanted me to just stay on Fox all the time.
You know, they're very concerned that I might not ask you serious questions, so I don't want
They really ask serious questions.
Yeah, right. I don't want to upset them at all. Do you mind if I ask you some serious questions? Because this is,
Not at all.
unfortunately...
Not at all. I never mind having a conversation with someone really smart.
Well, Guillermo, maybe you need to take over.
I will.
No, but I'm happy.
We were here in September of 2019, and one of the things we talked about at length was gun violence. And you said that we need to do something about this gun violence, particularly when it comes to our schools. And here we are, a couple years later. We're halfway through this year already. There have been, 27 shootings at schools? I guess, I mean, just to get into it, why haven't we done anything about this?
Well, I think a lot of it's intimidation by the NRA. And look, this is not your father's Republican Party. This is a MAGA party. It's a very different Republican Party. And so you find people who are worried, I believe, that if they vote for rational gun policy, they're going to be primaried, and they're going to lose in a hard right Republican primary.
Is that
There's a little bit of a deflection because Joe Manchin isn't in favor of gun reform. So he can't even hold his own party. Never mind get any Republicans to come over. Now, I will say, and we'll do a separate segment on this, they did just pass gun reform through the House. It has a couple provisions in it. It raises the age to buy, I think, a semi-automatic weapon to 21 years old, and it's got a whole bunch of other provisions in there as well. High-capacity magazine ban. It's viewed as dead on arrival in the Senate, but at least the House did do something on the issue. Now, Biden here, again, he's sort of deflecting blame and giving it all to the Republicans. I mean, don't get it twisted. The Republicans deserve the lion's share of the blame. Is that a thing? Is that a phrase? Did I just make that up right now? I think it makes sense. Anyway, but you can't even hold your own party, number one. Number two, there isn't even this effort from Joe Biden, like, I'm just going to go ahead and do some of these things through executive order and then dare the courts to slap it down. Because if you were to do these things through executive order, and even if you're not allowed to do them, number one, you'd be giving the American people exactly what they want in terms of the polling, and it's not even close. And number two, it might take a couple of years for it to go through the court process and eventually get struck down. So at least you'd have, a year or two of solid gun regulation. So I don't, his excuse is really nothing but an excuse. He's deflecting, he's obfuscating, and it's part and parcel of what Joe Biden is. He's basically a do-nothing president.
your take when you speak to these guys and women behind the scenes that they are, is there any honesty? Do they acknowledge that they would like to do something?
Well, I think many of them do. I get in trouble for saying this, but I get on, we have very different views on a lot of things, but I've always had a straight relationship with the majority, with the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell.
No, you haven't. He plays you like a fiddle. And by the way, Jimmy Kimmel's about to push back on this. Watch. Listen to what he says.
He's a guy that when he says something, he means it.
No, he does not.
Disagree with a lot of what he says, but he means it. There are a number of...
Like when he said we can't confirm a Supreme Court justice with a year left,
That's
and
right.
then said the opposite.
No.
That's literally exactly right. Mitch McConnell is a brazen liar. He is the most ruthless political actor with no principles and no standards and no consistency. For Biden to sit there and say, he's a straight talker, he's a straight guy, he means what he says, that's just... Biden's a dinosaur, man. He's a relic from an older age where he thinks, backslapping bipartisanship is the way to go. But you'll see, he keeps contradicting himself. In fact, he already did contradict himself. Before he was like, yeah, the Republicans are making it impossible to pass gun reform. And then in the next breath, he's like, well, what am I going to do? Or excuse me, he says both things at the same time. Number one, Republicans are obstructing. Number two, I have a great relationship with them and we can work together. So which is it? Which is it?
What he did, I mean, look, he's a leader of a party that's moved very hard right. And so in order to get anything done, he has a different problem than he did early on.
You're assuming he wants to get stuff done. What about his record makes you think that he wants to get stuff done? He literally broke the filibuster record as you were vice president.
Before Trump became president.
It seems like maybe the party has moved hard right, but I don't know that the people have moved hard right. Because people overwhelmingly believe we should have serious background checks. They overwhelmingly.
True.
Look,
you see what I'm saying, though, about how Kimmel's doing a better job than mainstream media hosts?
Jimmy, you may remember, the last time we did something serious about guns was when I passed the assault weapons ban. I was the guy that sponsored that, got it passed, limiting the number of bullets that could be in a magazine, the whole background checks, a whole range of things. And we passed. And violent crime and gun crime dropped off. But I can only get it passed for 10 years. It had to be reauthorized. And when the first Bush administration came along, they didn't reauthorize it. We didn't have the votes. And so what happened was, all of a sudden, it came back. You could own assault weapons again. And guess what? Crime went up significantly, 3 times. I mean...
So he's referring to the Brady bill here. I don't know how directly he was involved with those negotiations, but it is true that after that bill was passed, gun crime did drop. That is accurate.
So there is a direct...
It had a sunset provision, though, like he just described, which means after like a decade it went away, and they weren't able to get it reauthorized, like he said.
Correlation between the kinds of weapons that can be had. Look, I met with every single family member of all those kids who were killed and the teachers killed out down in Uvalde, Texas. And they stayed with me for almost 4 hours, over 200 of them, meaning family and extended family. And the stories they told and the pain you could see on their faces, it just made you, it leaves such a...
Shouldn't we demand that every senator in the United States sit with those families?
Well, the answer is...
The answer is Biden's not going to say that or do that.
I think we should make the demand. Here's what has to happen. All of you folks, and I hope, and I'm not being facetious when I say this, hope the Republicans here as well, you got to make sure that this becomes a voting issue. It's got to be one of those issues where you decide your position on the issue, senator or candidate for House or Senate, on what we're going to do on us with assault weapons and how maybe they'll have 300 rounds in a magazine. And I mean, what you say on those things is going to determine how I'm going to vote for you. It should be one of those issues.
You're right. It is our fault that people in the House and Congress can take responsibility for it, but it is our fault because we need to stop this.
I totally disagree with that. If every single poll consistently shows that all of the gun reforms that are talked about are way above 50%. I just saw a poll yesterday, a new poll on background checks. 92% of the country. 92%. Red flag laws, the polling is through the roof. Ban on high-capacity magazines, the polling is through the roof. Even assault weapons ban is at 63%. Like, every single gun reform you can name short of confiscation, people support. And so, what more do you want from the public? It's on you. It's on you guys. Now, yes, the entire Republican Party, the elected officials, are bought by the NRA. And that's a huge obstacle. But for the love of God, it's your job to find a way around that, to do something about that. And if he knew how to use his power, he could twist Joe Manchin's arm, for example, and whatever Democrats are standing in the way, and he could use his executive order power and do something. I'm sure there's some executive orders he could do on guns. He pretends like he can't do anything. I'm sure there's some things he could do. I mean, Donald Trump did something on guns through executive order after one of the shootings. I think, what was it, like a bump stock ban or something like that? I'm having trouble remembering it now. But I remember that he did something. So for the love of God, Joe.
We need to do it.
Well, we did last time, as I said, and it expired in 2004.
Can't you issue an executive order? Trump passed those out like Halloween candy.
Yes, sir.
See, Kimmel's doing a decent job.
Isn't that something that could happen?
Well, I have issued executive orders within the power of the presidency to be able to deal with everything having to do with guns, gun ownership, whether or not you have to have a waiting, all the things that are within my power. But what I don't want to do, and I'm not being facetious, I don't want to emulate Trump's abuse of the Constitution and constitutional authority. And so, and I mean that sincerely, because I often get asked, look, the Republicans don't play it square. Why do you play it square?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? If we do the same thing they do, our democracy will literally be in jeopardy.
No, our democracy is in jeopardy right now. And your commitment to institutionalism is part of the problem. It is toothless. So, look, this is a debatable issue, guys. If you start doing through executive order things that are wildly popular, is that really anti-democratic? Small d democratic. Is that really anti-democratic? Because you are the one who's being the vessel for the will of the people. Now, they could say, well, you're not following the process and the procedure, and you're not dotting every I and crossing every T. Okay, well, then let's take it to the courts. And again, even if it gets slapped down in court, at least you did the thing that was really popular, and then you can benefit politically from that. And maybe actually win because people like what you're doing. I would argue that doing popular policy, no matter how you get it done, even if it's not through the proper procedure, that is democratic. The people who are being undemocratic are the obstructionists and the people who are diehard institutionalists, where they'll sit around and say we can't get anything done because that's just the way the rules work.
Yeah, not a joke.
And I understand that argument, but also it's like you're playing Monopoly with somebody who, won't pass go and won't follow any of the rules. And how do you ever make any progress if they're not following the rules?
Well, you got to send them to jail,
Yeah, see, now Biden's joking there. Look, he's joking, which is why he's smiling. But in all seriousness, isn't that one of the things that one would need to do? So, that would be way more based. If you take people who do violate the law, if you take people who do abuse the system to block any change in the proper direction, and they're doing it at the behest of their donors and lobbyists and corporations and billionaires, yeah, those people should be in jail. I've always argued that corruption should be punished as harshly like it's murder or something, because that's really what destroys the fabric of the nation, and certainly the fabric of our government. But no, we've basically legalized corruption in this country, so it's just standard operating procedure. It's called a regular Tuesday if politicians represent billionaires and corporations over the will of the people. So he's joking, but, perhaps you shouldn't be, Joe.
Is that little box in there?
Directly to jail?
Go directly to jail.
The president is with us. Joseph Biden will be right back to talk more. We're back with President Biden.
So again, so far, Kimmel, I think, has done a great job. I think he falls off a little bit as time goes by, but so far it was way better than any mainstream media host.
And the First Lady is with us, too, here in Hollywood. Will you be
And my granddaughter.
And your granddaughter is here. The family is here.
And her fiancé.
And fiancé. Ooh,
Yeah, it's my daughter's birthday.
Oh, how about that? Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, baby.
Does somebody have to, remind you of all that stuff with all this craziness going on?
No. My dad used to have an expression. Family is the beginning, the middle, and the end.
I think a lot of Democrats are frustrated because, we got out and voted. We won the House, the Senate, the White House, obviously, and still we have made very little progress, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to guns, obviously, reproductive rights, voting rights, climate change, all these things. And in some ways, we've moved backwards.
Well, again, that's a great point, and it's true, and it goes beyond that. The failure to pass Build Back Better means we could have had universal pre-K. We don't have it. We could have had universal elder care. We don't have it. We could have had free college, at least 2 years of it. We don't have it. We could have had an extended child tax credit. We don't have it. He even rolled back unemployment. We should have lowered prescription drug prices. We didn't do that. We could have expanded Medicare. We didn't do that. All these things that were part of Build Back Better, we didn't get. So, and Joe wonders why his approval rating is lower than Trump's was at this point in his presidency. Well, there you go. Now, he's told by all of his staffers, no, it's because you went too far left and tried to do too much, and basically you're a puppet to AOC and Bernie Sanders. My ass cheeks. Oh, please. When he had an approval rating that was over 50%, he gave people $1,400 checks. That's when he was his most popular. The more you do for the people, the more they reward you and the higher your approval rating is. And they still haven't figured that out. Or they know it, but they don't care.
Well, on climate change, we've actually made some real moves. I mean, we have...
The only thing you did was get back in the Paris Climate Agreement.
We have, 1 in 7 of all the changes that have taken place in terms of solar, wind, and wind pumps, pumps and have occurred in the last 18 months. We've
1 in 7? Wow. Nice brag, bro.
Moved. And there's an opportunity with the process we have dealing with energy to be able to gradually move more rapidly than we have been to alternatives. For example, electric vehicles. Jimmy, when I got elected, I've pushed electric vehicles for the last, God knows how long. Well, I had a conversation with the chairman of the board of General Motors, Mary Berry, and she was suing California, remember, and because your standard was too high.
Right.
Said, well, guess what? We had a conversation. I got a call from her about 4 days later. She dropped the suit and committed she's going to go all electric in the entire General Motors line, and by 2030, going 50% electric.
All electric by 2035 or 2030. I mean, she's just telling you she's going to do that. If there's no force of law, she could just decide otherwise when the time comes. Or there could be a new CEO at that point, and they could decide otherwise. This is the problem with this neoliberal clown show. It's like when Hillary was debating Bernie in 2016 and said, I went to Wall Street and told them to cut it out. Oh, wow. Well, it looks like that didn't fucking work. Looks like just taking word of mouth from them is not a good idea. And you just asking for stuff is not a good idea. It's almost like you need to use the power of your office and the power of the law.
Well, but it really is. And then Ford came along and did the same thing. So we're on a path, and what is the successor to Chrysler is doing the same thing. We're moving in directions that are being slow. Look, we won. I got 81 million votes, more than anybody's ever gotten. And thank you for those who helped me. But what's happened, Jimmy, is we still only ended up with 50 senators, which means that we have 50 presidents.
And 2 of them are kind of iffy, I think, at best.
See, now, again, this is an interesting point because the narrative in Washington, D.C. that Biden hears all the time is that you move too far left, you try to do too much, you're beholden to Bernie Sanders. That's the problem. You got to be more moderate. You got to be more centrist. That's how you're going to win the next election. That's how the Democrats are going to be more popular. Even Jimmy Kimmel, who's a standard issue boilerplate Democrat, even he knows, no, it's Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. They're the problem. Even he knows that, which tells me even boilerplate liberals and Democrats know they're the problem. So it's not the left wing, it's the conservative wing of the Democratic Party that's blocking everything, and Joe Biden lays on the ground in a chalk outline of himself and does nothing.
Here's the thing, it's interesting. One of the things that's causing problems is that people think it's the Democratic Party that's so divided. And the problem is we have 48 out of 50 senators vote with me 95% of the time, more than any.
Well, that's not enough to get anything passed now, is it? You need all of them, so get to work. Find a way to do that. Use the carrot or stick approach. You tried the carrot approach, didn't work. Now try the stick approach. Joe Manchin is from a crime family, and we know that his daughter was price gouging for Big Pharma. She's caught in emails talking about it. Why not use that as leverage? Why not have a secret meeting with him and tell him, look, Merrick Garland's going to go after your daughter unless you do me a solid, dog? Kyrsten Sinema, are you kidding me? Like there's not dirt on her? What a joke. Make these people fall in line. Learn from LBJ. Learn from FDR. Your backslapping bullshit insider ways are not working. But that's the thing. He doesn't really care. He wants half measures anyway. So if he's not going to get a half measure, he'd rather have nothing than fight to get good policy.
The president has gotten that kind of support from their constituency. But we only have 50. And you can't get even 2, 3, 4 Republicans to vote. Look what's happening.
Now hold on, Biden. You said, soon as Trump's gone, the fever will break and the Republicans will want to work with me. Looks like that didn't happen. So are you saying that you were dead wrong in your theory of change? Perhaps Bernie Sanders' theory of change was way more correct.
Happening now with regard to everything from the way they talk about this potential decision from the Supreme Court. I mean, it's going to be, it's awful.
What do we do about that? I mean, what do we do?
Biden always talks like he's not the president. Man, this stuff's real bad, man. You got a lot of bad things going on. Gosh. Where's the president? I'd like to have a word with him about this. Bro, it's you. Go do some shit.
What do you say to Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema? What do you say to them when you get them on the telephone?
Well, what I say to them is, and by the way, they agree on a lot of these proposals relating to everything from choice all the way to...
I would hope so.
Well...
No, they don't. No, they don't. You haven't passed Roe versus Wade into law. You haven't done that. It would get through the House. It may have already gotten through the House. It hasn't gone through the Senate. Oh, they say they agree on this, this, and this. They haven't agreed to any of it. Any of it. None of it has become law. They said that about various provisions of Build Back Better. I think they were all on board for universal pre-K. Well, guess what? Biden did not propose a bill, a standalone bill on universal pre-K through reconciliation, which could have passed with 51 votes. If they all agreed to it, we'd have universal pre-K right now. We don't have it. They don't support it. They are liars, and you're not making them support it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I know, but it's not like they are there 80% of the time. The place that they're not there is Joe's not there on a lot of things having to do with the climate and the environment because he comes from cold country and he has a different view.
And he's bought by corporations. He's bought by the fossil fuel industry. You want to say that part? No, because you're also bought by a variety of industries, including the health insurance industry, which is why Biden just hiked Medicare premiums.
Kristen is not always there in terms of the tax policies. Look, here's where we are. We have the fastest growing economy in the world.
Oh, here we go. This is my favorite rant. Everything's good, bro. I don't even know what you're talking about. Everything's great.
The world. We have 8.6 million new jobs just since I got in office. Unemployment rate's down to 3.6%. We've reduced the deficit last year by $320 billion. This year, we're going to reduce it by $1.7 trillion.
He's bragging about deficit reduction. Deficit reduction. Why? Because he buys into the right-wing framing of everything. They don't actually even care about deficit reduction, Joe. It's just a ruse. It's to make you cut back on social services, and that makes your approval rating go down, and it hurts you politically. Why is it that the Democrats always reduce the deficit? The Republicans never reduce it. And whoa, would you look at that? It doesn't help the Democrats electorally when they reduce the deficit, because deficit reduction is not always a good idea. Especially when you have, I don't know, say a pandemic and you need to do spending.
It's $1 trillion.
Right.
And so we're the strongest economy, and that's allowed us at least to stay on top of and a little bit ahead of what's happening around the world. Second thing is, look, inflation is the bane of our existence. Inflation is mostly in food and in gasoline.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good thing people don't need food or gasoline.
At the pump.
That's what kills you, because it's a little billboard telling everyone how expensive everything is. If Donald Trump leaves one of those Sharpies over for you, you could maybe change the price on that, you know.
Bob, we could.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. You know, my dad used to say every family needs a little bit of breathing room. If you take and look at all the costs that a family has on a monthly basis, it also includes health care, prescription drugs, child care, all those things.
All those things you've done nothing on.
Proposing and I think we can get it done. I'm proposing that we, in fact, reduce the cost of those things. Why should anybody of you in the audience know anybody who has to take insulin every month because they have type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes? Well, guess what? They're charging as high as $1,000 a month in some places, average $647 a month on average. Well, if I pass what I want to get done, which we can do, and we can do it relatively easy, it's not going to cost more than $35 a month. It costs these companies... No, I'm not...
All right, see, this makes me furious, because we know, because of the American Prospect and David Dayen and his list of the executive order tracker, we know Biden has the ability to do this through executive order. One of the things he could do on his own is lower prescription drug prices and even make federal generics to compete with those drugs. He has the ability to do that on his own. He has chosen not to do it. So now he's virtue signaling like he cares about this issue, but he acts like it has to get through Congress. It doesn't have to get through Congress. So go do it. God, this pisses me off. And he does this with student loan debt, too, where he acts like, you know, for a while he was saying, oh, it has to get through Congress. No, it doesn't. You have the authority. The Secretary of Education has the authority at your behest to eliminate all student loan debt. You're choosing not to do it.
This is not, as our friends on Fox would say, socialism. This is very practical. They have a...
Scared of his own fucking shadow. I mean, he's a right-wing Democrat, and he still's like, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a socialist. You know, I wouldn't want to actually potentially be popular and do popular things.
It costs $10 to make a vial. So charging $35 gives them, you know, a significant profit. They don't need, for example, our oil companies.
Yeah, which is why, again, neoliberal brain rot. It shouldn't even cost $35. It should be free. It should be free. And the $10 should be paid for by the government for insulin. Because what? If somebody who's really poor and can't even afford the $35, well, maybe they should have to suffer. I get it. $375 or whatever it was is way too much, but $35, that's fine. What if somebody can't afford the $35?
Oil companies, instead of everybody says, well, Biden won't let them drill, they have 9,000 drilling sites that they've already owned that are there. They're not doing it. You know why? Because they make more money not drilling and buying back their own stock.
It's all...
Yeah, but should they even have those 9,000 places? See, that's the problem. He's like, I gave you what you want. What's the problem? Yeah, but that is the problem. We don't want more drilling. We don't want more drilling. We should have already done a full transition to green and renewable technology. We'd be in a much better place if we weren't relying on Saudi Arabia and the Middle East right now. You know, the gas price issue wouldn't be an issue if we'd already made the full transition, which we probably should have done.
Screwed up, and that's the thing.
It is screwed up, but we are only a few votes away from being able to straighten it out. We have to get the message across in a way that is understandable to people like the folks in my family we grew up. Tell people just what the facts are. And the facts are that this isn't anything about, so this is about building the economy. When I ran, I said, I want to build a new economy. No more trickle down from the bottom up and the middle out, because when the middle does well, everybody does well. The wealthy do very, very well. The idea, there are 54 major corporations in America, made $40 billion last year and don't pay a penny in taxes. Not a penny. How many think the tax code is fair anywhere along the line here? How many? No, I'm not being facetious now. I'm being deadly earnest. They don't pay a penny. So if we had a minimum tax of 15%, just a minimum of 15, it doesn't hurt them at all. They make a lot of money still, and we can raise a lot of money to make sure that child care doesn't cost you $1,400 a month. To make sure.
But this all makes
clapping, but he's not, like, none of this is going to get done. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to lift a finger to change this.
perfect sense. And the fact that this makes sense is why it doesn't make sense and why it seems so crazy and that we have so many problems and that maybe it's just that Americans aren't as knowledgeable as they should be. Or maybe...
Stop with the blaming of Americans. It's not about Americans. Americans are there on all these issues. The problem is the corruption in Washington, D.C. Nobody is representing the interests of the people, including Joseph Robinette Biden, who's sitting right in front of you and saying, here's all the good things we should do, but he's not going to do any of them.
There's a Death Star pumping false information into our
Fox,
brains.
Right?
Fox is a scourge, but the problem here is not Fox. The problem is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are bought by corporations and billionaires. They're doing their bidding, and none of the good, positive stuff gets done. And Joe Biden is part of that problem.
Yeah, or maybe it's always been this way. I mean, here in L.A., a small fraction of people voted in the primary yesterday, and then everybody wants to complain about everything, and it's enough already. And I think you need to start yelling at people. Is really what I think.
Well, here's what I think. Look, think about this. Look what impact the pandemic has had on people. It has had enormous impact, negative impact. Think of just your kids. How many of them got to go to a prom? How many had a graduation that got celebrated? How much has changed in terms of the relationships between people and how they interact with one another? I mean, so much has changed. And we need, Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, talks about the need for significant mental health proposals relating to people who are feeling, not knowing where they're going, not knowing how to respond, not knowing how to act. And
I would 100% support significant mental health proposals. I want universal mental health care as part of a Medicare for All system. The Republicans, every time there's a mass shooting, they come out and talk about, not a gun problem, it's a mental health problem, we need to do something on mental health. Why don't you call the bluff? Why not propose a bill on universal mental health care, tie it directly to the gun issue, and say, look, you guys said you wanted it, we're not even asking for any concessions. We're not even asking for any left-wing ideas along with this. Let's just do what you said you wanted. And then make them vote on it. And see what happens. You'd be able to get every Democrat on that one. So, what do you need, 9 Republicans? Go ahead, call their bluff. And then when they vote against it, you go out there and say, look at these sons of bitches. Can you believe they said they want a mental health care to deal with the gun issue? We give it to them exactly as they want, and then they vote against it.
so there's a lot we can do. But the
You're not doing anything.
bottom line is, I think, that we've seen such a radical shift in one party, and the ability of that party to that minority of the MAGA folks.
It's like we're living in 2 countries at once.
Yeah, and
it's
so,
like you can be.
But I've never been more optimistic in my life. So I'll tell you why.
Why are you so optimistic?
No,
it makes no sense.
No, it does. Look at the kids. Look at the young people. Best educated, least prejudiced, most giving generation in American history. Turn on the television. You turn on it. No, I'm serious.
There's something to that. Yeah.
No, I'm serious. You turn on the TV. Look at the ads. When's the last time you saw biracial couples on TV? When's the last time you saw the way
my God.
people are selling products? They do ads to sell products, and they sell products when they appeal to people. This generation is going to change everything. We just got to make sure we don't give up.
I can't. We go through all the problems in all the different areas. Like, nobody has childcare, nobody has elder care, the middle class is getting absolutely squeezed, corporations aren't paying a dime in taxes, climate change is out of control, we can't do a single goddamn thing on gun reform. But I'm very optimistic, because I see some interracial couples on the TV at night, and these kids, they love the interracial couples, so they're gonna come save us. What the fuck, Joseph? What the fuck?
There's an ability for us to do everything from increase the access to education, healthcare. Look what we did in healthcare. All the talk about it. I was able to reduce people's bills about $400 a month.
It has changed.
No idea where he got that from. No idea. He did this anniversary of Obamacare event with Obama at the White House recently. And then they talked about how they slightly expanded Obamacare in very minor ways. And is that what he's taking credit for? We just got the news from The Lever, David Sirota's outlet, that he hiked Medicare prices. So what is he talking about? What is he talking about?
Change people's lives for the better. No question about it.
So there's a lot of major things we've done. But what we haven't done is we haven't been able to communicate it in a way that is, let me say another way.
Well, see, that's kind of perfect. Yeah, we haven't been able to communicate it.
But look how the press has changed. Mm-hmm. Look how the press has changed.
It has changed. Oh, listen, I get it.
So now he's going to blame the media for all of his failings. The media is horrendous, but so are you, Joe. You're not doing anything.
I know you overstand it. Yeah. You don't just understand it, you overstand it. But here's the deal. One of the things is that it's very difficult now to have even with notable exceptions, even the really good reporters, they have to get the number of clicks on nightly news. Mm-hmm. So instead of asking a question, anyway, it just everything gets sensationalized in ways that, but I'm
the Adderall's wearing off, y'all.
Convinced we can get through this. We have to get through it. And one of the things, look.
I'm going to take a break, and then we'll talk a little bit more, if you don't mind. I'm sorry. We have some of those commercials. We have some biracial commercials we need to tell. We'll be back with President Biden. We're back with the President of the United States. Just a process question. When you have sensitive documents that you need to flush down the toilet, do you do that? Is that done in your office toilet, or is that done in the bathroom, in the personal bathroom area?
I call Trump. I haven't. Everybody talks about, sensitive documents and the like. I don't destroy anything, but one of the things that I spent more time with Xi Jinping than any other head of state, and I'd always be, when I traveled with him 17,000 miles, spent 78 hours with him, they tell me, all told. And I'd have a consecutive interpreter, and he'd have one. And the difference between when I would do that and others would do it, I always handed in all my notes.
You got to hand in your notes.
Hand in my notes.
We learned that in school,
That's
theoretically.
Right.
Roe versus Wade. Boy, these things just keep coming at you, don't they? I mean, there's no. You have not had an easier. What a terrible job you have. I mean, what? I'm glad you're doing it, but boy, oh boy, does this seem like a bad gig.
It's I think if the court overrules Roe v. Wade and does what it's draft.
What we fear they will.
Well, if that occurs, I think we have to legislate it. We have to make sure we pass legislation making it a law that is the federal government says this is how it works.
In another situation.
Why haven't you done it yet? Democrats for decades and decades have been talking about this, and none of them did it. From Jimmy Carter and onward, none of them did it. Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, all of them have said, well, we need to protect it by codifying it into law. Even when Obama had a supermajority, he didn't codify it into law. Again, they talk like they don't have power, and they never had power. You have power right this second. You currently have the Senate, you currently have the House, and you're the president, so you have the White House. Do it! Do it! They're not doing it. They just want to use this issue for votes. And they want to use this issue to fundraise. But they're not doing anything on it.
Where most of the country is on the same page. Something like 64% of Americans do not want to see Roe v. Wade overturned.
And it's just going to be the beginning, by the way. You know, there used to be a case called Connecticut versus Griswold.
Oh, I'm very familiar with it.
Well, you know, no, but all kidding aside.
Is that from the National Lampoon Vacation movie?
It is. But Connecticut versus Griswold said that you could not use contraception in the privacy of your own bedroom, because in the Constitution there was no right to privacy. And so they could outlaw, and if you used contraception, it was against the law. You couldn't purchase contraception. And, you know, there's a whole range of things that are at stake here when we talk about eliminating Roe v. Wade and all the
same-sex marriage.
I mean, it's just ridiculous.
All right, so pass a law guaranteeing right to contraception use. Pass a law guaranteeing the right to gay marriage. You can codify that into law and get ahead of it if they overturn it. But again, they're not going to do that.
In my view. And I don't think the country will stand for it, but I think what we're going to have to do, there's some executive orders I could employ. We believe we're looking at that right now.
Oh, you're looking into it. Nice.
But I want to keep employing. But look.
How much you want to bet that doesn't get done?
It's clear that if, in fact, the decision comes down the way it does and these states impose the limitations they're talking about, it's going to cause a mini revolution. They're going to vote a lot of these folks out of office. We got to keep it focused on if
it happens, there's going to be a mini revolution. So in other words, he thinks if they overturn Roe versus Wade, they're going to. Then in the midterms, we're going to really benefit from that. We're going to win. Yeah, but Joe, yes, it might make the bloodbath slightly less bloodbathy, but it's still going to be a bloodbath between high gas prices, inflation, the fact that you haven't done anything for anybody, people are feeling the hurt as you pretend like everything's all hunky-dory. That's not enough, dog. Look, he's literally just like resting on what happens around him. That's a horrible idea.
They overrule Roe v. Wade, and the state, California won't do it, but other states say that you cannot do the following. It's a law. You can't cross the border. You can't, all the things that some states have. And you got to make sure that you vote. You got to vote and let people know exactly what the devil you think.
So he just spent the past 20 minutes on here's why we can't get anything done. Here's why this is hard. Here's why that's hard. Look at the Republican Party. I don't have the authority. What am I going to do? I have to follow the Constitution. And then at the end he's like, just vote. But wait, people did just vote, and now you're in power, and you're like, my hands are tied, bro. So I can't. Anyway, you guys get the gist of it. Jimmy Kimmel did a decent job. I don't want to give him too much credit. There were some cringe moments, but he did better than most mainstream media hosts. And Joe Biden, not good to say the least.